Japan is accusing China of two dangerous mid-air confrontations near Okinawa. Tokyo says Chinese fighter jets aimed their radar at Japanese military aircraft, a move Prime Minister Sanai Takaichi called extremely regrettable and potentially threatening. However, China denies the claim, saying Japanese planes disrupted its carrier-based drills near the Miyako Strait. The incidents come as tensions between the two countries spike over Taiwan. Tokyo has warned it could respond if a Taiwan crisis threatens Japan's security. Meanwhile, Australia has also backed Japan, calling China's actions deeply concerning. China has also increased its military activity across East Asian waters, deploying more than 100 naval and Coast Guard vessels in recent days. Taiwan says the surge in drills amounts to harassment and psychological pressure, adding to rising instability in the region. Joining us now is Major General R. Sudhakaji. He's an international relations and defence expert. He joins us live from New Delhi, and also joining us is Dr. Asta Chadha. She is an associate professor of international relations at Ritsumeikan University, located in Kyoto in Japan. Thank you very much, both of you, for joining us here on NewsX World. I want to start with Major General G first. Of course, Sanai Takaichi used the exact same language when it came to her previous comments about Taiwan. She called this incident extremely regrettable, the same words that she used about possible military action in Taiwan for Japan. What are your thoughts on this current situation, Major General G, and how it might escalate?
Good evening, Thomas. Thank you for getting me for your show, and my best wishes to my co-panelists, distinguished co-panelists. As regards the question, it's my take on the whole issue is that there is a huge potential for flare-up. Perhaps the situation has become so volatile, it was as if waiting for a little trigger. Therefore, there is a requirement to exercise restraint. Unfortunately, the focus and attention of the world order has not gravitated to South China Sea, and the media also has not been playing its role. It's whenever it is showcased or brought anything to the notice of the people of the planet, it has been merely a Chinese vessel ramming into a vessel of Philippines, and that's all. Now, this particular incident, it reminds me the huge volatility and the sensitivity that lies dormant or lingering since ages between Japan and China. Particularly, if you take your mind back, in 2010, there was a vessel of China which rammed into another vessel of Japan near Sikanko Island, if I respect my memory, Diao Island. And the captain of the ship was apprehended. He was subjected to judicial trial, and China, as expected for the first time, and came out with total vindictiveness and weaponized the supply of rare earth element. I recall that was the turning point, that a politicization of rare earth element turning into weaponization, that was on the sea. Now this incident is very, very dangerous. It is happening in the sky. Anything happening in the sky, we have very little control except for the electromagnetic and the cyber linkages that we have, and the satellite communication. So therefore, there is a danger to the aerial platform, there is a danger to the pilot, there is a danger also of crossing each other's border, and this may actually escalate the hostilities and bring about a situation which may be beyond control. Back to you, Thomas.
Yes, I want to bring in Dr. Chadha next. Of course, joining us from Japan. Dr. Chadha, Japan is accusing China of these two radar lock incidents, which is, of course, a combat precursor. From your reading of the region, how credible is Tokyo's version of events here?
I mean, it's quite credible because it's not just Japan that is responding to this incident, it's Australia as well. And, as we are speaking, there's already been a meeting between the defense ministers of Japan and Australia with regards to East China Sea security as well as the wider security in the Indo-Pacific. So, I mean, the concerns here are twofold. I mean, one is that from China's side, China looks at both Australia, Japan as nations that have started voicing their concerns with regards to China exercising its influence in East China Sea. They see China looks at Australia and Japan trying to respond in a very aggressive manner when they use the words such as, equating Taiwanese security with that of the Japanese security. But on the Japan and Australian side, they're trying to at least keep the peace or trying to at least, not escalate further. They've lodged their, disapproval with China's behavior. They've said that it is, it is a serious violation of their of Japanese sovereignty in some way, or it is in a way is being seen as an escalation of conflict, or because of what's happening with the Japanese jets being, this whole idea of a locked fire control radar onto Japanese jets. This is seen as a violation. However, we must understand that, these incidents it is not just a new or one-off incident. Previously, Taiwan had shared intel with its Indo-Pacific partners stating that China was conducting such drills and it was targeting any foreign vessel close to Taiwan as well. And this is part of the China's gray zone tactics. So overall, at least from here, speaking from here in Japan, there is a serious concern. At the same time, it is not that escalatory that Japan is worried, because Japan has partners. Countries like Australia, United States do understand the vulnerability of Japan geographically and even diplomatically. So Japan is not alone in this. That being said, the relations between Japan and China are worsening, and they have definitely touched a low, as my fellow panelist was earlier mentioning. They've definitely touched a low, and we're seeing an increasing, just as he mentioned, securitization or weaponization of, whether it's tech or it's rare earths from China. So we are looking at the region continuing to face this heated situation for a while.
Yes, and Dr. Chada, I just want to stay with you. This is Prime Minister Sanai Takaichi, Japan's first female prime minister's first major security crisis in office, and it has come very soon. How likely do you think is her government likely to capitalize on this or possibly mismanage it?
I mean, I don't see any, as of now, given the way she's handling the whole security crisis, I don't see it being mismanaged in any way. However, it needs to be acknowledged that definitely it is in her term. And given that she's taken a very strong stance, and, in some ways that was her long-standing stance, given that she's been an Prime Minister Abe protege, we could see her line of politics and her ultra-conservative sort of stance with regard to China specifically. So this was bound to happen, and we were seeing that Japan would take a very strong stance compared to the previous prime ministers, at least. So that's that. However, I must also point out that this is not just a very international or a bilateral issue for Japan. There's also a lot of domestic politics engaged in the way Prime Minister Takaichi is responding to this crisis. And I'm speaking this in the backdrop of the kind of sort of rising discontent that is rising in Japan with regards to the foreigners, or with the fact that Japan is trying to tighten its land ownership laws. And, a lot of those are not specifically targeted at Chinese, but it does happen that a lot of East Asians are the ones that end up buying lands in Japan, or maybe, they end up owning properties in Japan. So it's for Sanai Takaichi's government, it's a twofold sort of, a challenge. She needs to manage foreign relations with the people who now live in Japan as foreign residents. And also she needs to manage this crisis, which is now an international crisis and has wider Indo-Pacific security implications.
Dr. Astha Chadha, thank you very much for joining us here on NewsX World. It's always a pleasure to speak to you. We now move on and stay in the region, of course.